podcast made by women for women. We talk with a wide variety of experts, ranging from a sex therapist to the CDC and everywhere in between, to bring you the stories you're only going to hear here. Our goal is to entertain and educate, because it's more clear now than ever just how much we as women are doing, as parents, as spouses, employees, just as everything. Don't miss out on being in the know. Subscribe to Soul Source wherever you listen to podcasts today. Leave us a review too, because this part's really important. When you leave those reviews, that's how we're able to continue bringing you the content you love each and every week. So buckle up, Soul Source Society, because we're about to get started.
You have literally planned out your life, pillars that are going to happen no matter what. Okay? The rest of it, how you get from point A to point B, is going to be up to you, because that's your free choice. No matter what, you're always going to get to that pillar. So a psychic taps into that energy and sees or feels or hears or knows, and can then give you the message of what they see.
Hello there, everybody. I am your host, Raquel Lamel, here on Soul Source. And today, my guest is somebody who I'm super excited about, and I'm really excited to share this with all of you. So, as you know, on Soul Source, we talk a lot about women's issues, right? We educate women and we talk about different topics that are happening in a woman's life. Well, this is something that impacts, yes, men and women, but I do think women might be a little more in tune with some of the things we're going to talk about today. So DeEtte Ranae is here, and she is a psychic. She's a medium. She's a medical intuitive. She's a whole lot of other stuff that's really, really awesome, and I'm so excited to have her on our show today. DeEtte, welcome to Soul Source.
Thank you so much for having me on today.
This is going to be so much fun. So I mentioned 3 different things, right? Psychic, medium, medical, intuitive. I know a lot of people cross a few of those. Specifically, I know psychic and medium always gets crossed. Can you explain all of those to me a little bit? What does that mean?
Okay. So a psychic is something you're born with. Everybody's born with those gifts, and those are really just your senses that are a little bit more heightened. So you always usually hear it more with women than men, and because we call it motherly intuition. You know when your child's in danger, in trouble, is hurt, that type of stuff. It doesn't mean that men don't have it. It's just, I think women talk more about it than men do. So there tends to be, what I've noticed, more females in the industry when it comes to that. But it really is just more heightened sense, being able to connect with energy a little bit better and read that energy. Now, mediumship is talking to those that are on the other side, loved ones that have passed away. That doesn't exclude animals and things of that nature, animals, angels, guides, anything on that horizon. Okay. So mediumship really is connected to the other side. Some people call it heaven. So, the afterlife, whatever you might. Now, medical intuitive is a little bit different than the rest. I do believe, because I was a nurse for 21 years, that's more of a reason that I kind of went into that category also. But I do also believe my Reiki training also came into effect with that, because when I started doing Reiki, I would actually, Reiki is an energy healing. So when I would start doing it, I would actually feel other people's issues in my body versus feeling the hot spots over theirs. I would feel it, like if you had a sore shoulder, I would feel it in my shoulder, things of that nature. So when I went into doing readings, and it's very much a psychic thing, and I connect to your energy, I actually feel your body within my body. And I can feel those things. It'll show me if it's cancer. A lot of times it'll show me it's just a backache. It'll show me if you're misaligned. And I can actually, if I'm right on tune, I can actually figure out which vertebrae it is, where your hip is, where it's twisted, and then send you back to your chiropractor to see, hey, is she correct? Can this help me? So yeah, it's beautiful.
Oh, my goodness. My first thought is, okay, that's cool for the people you're doing that for. But then I'm like, for you, that's got to be exhausting.
No. Because the minute you do it, it's kind of like it's kind of like a woman. If you talk about it, you get to let it go. So I talk about it, I let it go, and it's no longer mine, which is very nice.
So how did you first find out that you had these abilities? What happened?
Oh, boy. First found out or first understood, I guess, it's really 2 different questions. So the story goes back to, you're born this way, but really I didn't have an understanding of it until I was about 9 years old. And I'm going to age myself a little bit here, because back when I was 9 years old, you couldn't go into a hospital. They actually had a rule that had to be 13 and go upstairs to a hospital. So
Wow.
I had no
Okay.
clue what it looked like. And a grandmother of mine was taken to the hospital, and she'd been there. And of course, I hadn't been able to see her. And in a dream one night, she had come to me and she walked me all over the hospital, and she was talking to me about the afterlife and bodies and souls and all that. And at 9, I wasn't listening. I was looking at all this cool stuff, you know. And she was opening rooms and shutting rooms, and she finally got to this last one, and she opened up the door, and there was an old lady laying in bed, and she had tubes and hoses. And now I know it was just oxygen IVs, but she looked at me and she goes, DeEtte, who is that in the bed? And I looked at the lady really carefully and I said, Grandma, it looks like you. And then she looked at me and she goes, but who am I? And I looked at her and I said, I'm confused, you know, because there was 2 of her. And that's when she really kind of hit the point of the difference between the body and the soul. And that when the body wasn't working anymore, the soul leaves and goes back to heaven. And she also let me know that her body was no longer working, that it had died, and that I shouldn't be afraid, because I would talk to souls the rest of my life. That was something I would do. The dream was over. I woke up, I looked at my mom, I said, Grandma died. And she said, oh, no, 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 no. She did not, blah, blah, blah. I said, oh yeah, Grandma died. And of course it's not her mom. And shortly thereafter that, she got a phone call that Grandma died. So, and even with that, it didn't hit home. It just became natural because I started dreaming people's deaths, you know, always dreaming people's deaths. And that's where the mediumship side come from. The psychic, I always seem to be the kid that know everything, you know, that child that nobody wants because they know everything. You're like, oh, shush, you don't know it. Shush, you don't know it. That was me. So, but the realization of my gifts didn't come until I was almost 40.
Wow, that's a long time to be experiencing these things and not know what's all going on there. So talk with me about that piece then. How does that realization come into play?
Well, for myself, it was literally, you know, I didn't pay much attention to it. I would tell people when I had dreams, this and that, and nobody really connected the dots. You know, nobody really put it together until I was older. But when I was 19 is when I bought my first tarot deck. I really started to get interested in things. Got into ruins, pendulums, things of that nature. But I would also put things back away. And then I would pick them up later and I would put them back away. And that's because I had a sister that was highly, highly religious. And she would tell me those were things we don't play with. Those were things of the devil. So I would I'd buy them all. Of course, she lived in Texas. I lived up here, so I could get away with a lot. But then we'd have a discussion. I go, oh my God, and I'd throw them all away. And that kind of went on for some years. I ended up in a really bad relationship, and I would start to see things before they would happen. And then I thought I was crazy, and I thought maybe I was making up in my head, and until literally a point where, you know, what had happened was we had separated, and then my sister had passed away. And after she passed away, about 3 weeks later, I was visiting some friends of mine that were very good psychics and mediums. And all of a sudden she came through, and she came through really strong. And I started crying, and I mean, just crying and crying. And through this reading, she's scolding me for crying, because I'm like, but you know everything now. I've been lying to you for all these years and blah, blah, blah. And she came back and just said how beautiful I was and this and that. And then all of a sudden in this message, now she'd only been gone 3 weeks. And in life, she didn't believe in talking to dead people. That was sacrilegious.
Right.
She stopped and looked at my friend and goes, wait, who are you? When did God make you? And he's like saying all this. And he's like however many years ago. And what do you mean? She's like, but I'm dead. And he goes, and I can hear you and see you. And all of a sudden on the afterlife, it clicked. And she looked, and I guess she had looked at me at that point and went, oh my God, I hindered her. I stopped her from what my natural course was, because of my belief in her. And it was no big deal. But at that point, then everything really started to fall into place, because it was like, I got permission to be who I am. And she gave me that permission through a reading. So then I took a lot of classes, honed the abilities, and now I actually teach it.
That's incredible. Just, oh my goodness, there's so much I'm learning about you, DeEtte. I didn't know. This is awesome. So, okay, so you do a lot of these readings and speaking to people and picking up on energy now, as you mentioned. What type of an emotional, mental, physical, what type of toll does all this take on you? Does it take a toll?
It doesn't. It doesn't. I'm really good at taking care of myself. So, and I call that spiritual hygiene, which is meaning, checking my energy every day, seeing where I'm sitting with that, eating better, eating more right, if that makes sense. It really increased my water intake. I've learned how to tell the other side no, or the energy no. Like, I don't have to turn on today. And I give myself those mental breaks. So
That
it works. It works beautifully right now. We do get burned out though, especially if we start doing too much, we can get burnt out.
That's what I was going to ask you, because I was talking with, Soul Source is put on by Red Shoes Inc. So we're a couple of ladies here in the office, and I was talking to you today. So of course everybody has questions. And that was one of the questions, was like, do you just walk around and you're just hearing people all the time and connected? And like, how do you go about life? And so
it was that way before I went and got trained. Like anybody will tell you, you can go and be spirit trained, which is amazing, but you don't always learn how to shut off. So when I went to get trained, I learned how to turn that off, and I could say no. Like, I have a saying, and this might sound a little rude, but I do have a saying. A dead person's never going to get any more dead. They can wait.
This is true.
You know what I mean? It's like, I'm sorry, if you want your loved one to have to speak to your loved one, I'm not going to walk up. I'm not going to listen to you right now and sit in the grocery store when they don't even know me, when there is a process, because all you have to do on the other side is, because they are soul. Go start talking to your loved one, get them on the wavelength that they need to talk to you. You know what I mean? They have that urge, and then just show them me. They'll find their way through internet or wherever. So it's much easier that way.
That's it's so cool that you can do that, and they listen, like that you can tell them no, and that they actually listen.
Yeah.
Okay.
They don't. Yeah, because once a person passes away, they go back to total love. They're just all about love. They're all about, they don't want to harm. They don't want to they don't want to interrupt somebody else's life. So yeah, they're very respectful. They're not like watching you in the shower, go in the bathroom, or anything like that. They've got great boundaries.
Well, okay, so then I'm going to ask you this question, because this just, you see this stuff in like movies and on TV and stuff like that. Like, there's bad out there too. So does that come through? Does that listen? Do you get that? Or is it pretty much just spirits and they're...
That's two totally different categories. Okay. And people, and I will tell you what, a lot of the people I train, a lot of the people, my students, when they first come to me, they're always like, oh my God, I don't want to see this. I don't want to see that. There's so many TV shows. I've seen it all. And I'm like, and none of that really is what my world is. Okay. So when somebody calls me or arranges an appointment to have a meeting or reading with me, I open up to that time. Now, if you think about this, spirit comes to me, or, spirit wants to talk to their loved one. So they really start getting you thinking about them. And then if it's me, they choose that they want you to speak with, they'll actually, guide you to me some way, whether it be my word of mouth or my business card or internet search or whatever. You'll get guided to me, and then that meeting happens. Now, when you're seeing the bad stuff, but all those have crossed over. All those made a choice to go to the other side. They want, I want eternal heaven. I want happiness, all that stuff. You do have souls that choose to stay here, and they make a conscious choice. And that might be because they've done something here that they thought they'll never be forgiven in heaven, whatever it might be. They choose to stay here. Okay. Maybe it's to take care of loved ones that, they don't even realize the loved one has passed away now. Then that can become negative. Not all of it is though. I recently did my first paranormal investigation, and out of the whole building, there was one negative one. The rest were all very positive.
Okay. Another question that we had here from inside the office was, do you always share everything that comes through? If you would get back, would you ever know, like, for example, okay, you've got this deadly form of cancer, you're going to die in 3 months. Like, would something like that ever come through? Would you ever share something bad with somebody or not?
Yes, it has. It has. And I mean, you don't look at them and say, oh my God, I think you're dying, because, oh my God, that would scare you. That would just terrify you. And what if I was wrong? Because I'll tell you, I'll never scream I'm 100% accurate. And I think anybody that does scream that, go to the next person, because
a red flag.
And it's a red flag. I will never scream 100%, but I have had many times where I've literally went to somebody. I said, you know what? I feel something in your breast. I don't know what it is. I'm just feeling some pain, whatever it might be. Please just humor me and go schedule an appointment with your doctor. And a year later, they're coming back going, you know, you don't remember me, because I don't. And they're like, I went to my doctor. Turns out I had breast cancer, but they beat it. A year of treatment, they beat it. All those types of things. I've seen people with heart issues send them in. With digestion, whatever it is. And I just send them back to the doctor, only because it's not mine to take care of. One is because I am a nurse, and I that's a fine line. I can't diagnose,
Right.
but I do tell them, hey, this is what I'm feeling. This is what I'm sensing. This is what I'm seeing. Because if I don't tell them, they're not going to go to the doctor. And the medical intuitive part of me just really gets washed out then.
That's incredible. You gotta almost feel a little bit like a lifesaver in some cases, I bet, or like a hero a little bit.
No, not really.
Not
No more
really.
than when I was a nurse, you know what I mean? When I was
Yeah.
doing that every day, that's been part of my world for so long,
Uh-huh.
that to me, it's just, and I used those abilities in my nursing and didn't even realize I was until the very end. So to me, it's just, it feels like it's part of my path. Like this is, I'm there to help those people that, have these things that are supposed to live another 20 years or 30 years, to just guide them someplace.
Oh, that's awesome. And you're so humble about it, DeEtte. have have you ever refused to do a reading with somebody due to any kind of energy or anything you pick up?
No,
No.
I don't
Okay.
refuse readings. There has been probably two, I think two now, that one person I wasn't able to connect to, and I I was doing a reading at a place, and it was a slow day, so we were all standing outside, and cop cars went flying by and everything else, and my energy went with them. And as soon as that went by, a lady came in, like, I need a reading right now. Can I have one with you? And I'm like, yeah, 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 sit, okay. And no matter what I did, I couldn't connect to her because I kept feeling morphine rushing through my system. I felt like I was out of it. I felt like literally I was about to take my last breath. I felt like I'd been beat up, all of this. And she's like, it's not me. That's not me. I said, do me a favor, go to this person. I don't know what I've connected to, but I don't want to put this on you. Please go to the gentleman next to me. And she did. And about an hour later, we found out all those ambulances and the cops were running to an accident, a motorcycle accident that had happened up on the highway. And the gentleman had actually died on the highway. So after they were shooting morphine and everything else into him to try to save him. And that's what I connected to. So I said, I'm humble enough to say I can't connect. It also happened just a few weeks ago where I don't know what was happening. I just couldn't feel the connection to her. I told her, I can't do this. Let me refund your money because I don't know what is going on, but let me refund your money. And she said, no, no, no. You come by, great word of mouth. Let's try this again. And I said, okay, let's try. So we scheduled for another day, connected with her, did much better, gave her what she needed. And then she went on her way. So you just have to be able to say, I can't do this. And that's okay.
It is okay. It makes you honest. I mean, I can attest to this. I've said this about you before, DeEtte, but you've done a reading for me before. You are spot on in my opinion. And the fact that you're willing to tell people when it's just not working, that's important.
It is. I think it gives us credibility because in my profession, we have very little credibility. We're only really as good as our last reading. And because we look at things that are unknown, you can't see it, you can't feel it. You're going off of whatever I say to you. And then there's a certain amount of trust. So I could, because there's always that ability. I mean, used car salesmen do it, everything else, read body language, and you can almost BS yourself through something, but it's really not, if nothing you say comes true, they're not going to come back to you. They're not going to tell your friends. And my job really is spirit brought you to me, and then the rest is word of mouth.
And that's what I was going to ask because there are skeptics out there. There are people who go, oh, this is like, you can find all this information online and they look you up before you get there and they can read your body language and that's how they're coming up with this information. So I guess what do you say to that, to people with that mindset?
I love skeptics. I love it. And I tell everybody, please come to me skeptical. Please. You should never go into a reading not being skeptical. Why? Because that keeps us on our toes. Number one, even when people schedule me, I really don't want anything more than your first name, because I don't do as many events as I used to. And that is all blind reading. You don't know who's coming to you. There's no way you could Google. But now that I've switched into a lot of home readings, I tell them, I want your first name. That's all I want. I want a number to call you back or a Zoom connection, whatever, to get that information to you. And other than that, I don't want any source or links to you, because that actually makes my job harder. It also helps because they're coming to me. One, they know they're highly skeptical, and two, they know there's no way I could Google them. There's just no way. So I literally come off very like, here you go, let's go, let's do this, and see what comes out of my mouth.
It's going to surprise people. I promise them that. So
I just tell everybody, God gave me a big mouth. I don't know how to shut it. And he said, we have to do something with this or she's going to get in trouble.
So for people in general, who might have some abilities and might be like you were, where they're like, they don't really know what's going on. Is there like an age range where this stuff typically develops for most people?
I don't think so. I really don't think so. I'm a highly believer, and I've watched it with my own grandchildren and my children, where right out of the womb, it seems like they start to do a connection. If I take anybody back to when their child is born, when their child is first born, those abilities are shown immediately, like instantly. And people are like, how do you know this? And it's like, well, number one, when the child is born, they start screaming. Okay. If you think about it, they've only felt mom. They've only felt mom. That's it. They felt mom. They hear things around them, but that feeling is really mom. So, and it's a very close, comforting place they've been at. So they come through it, they're born, and all of a sudden they're born into this huge room. So they're feeling this room. They're feeling all of these people around them. They're screaming that whole thing, so that feeling of sense of feeling is already started to develop. Now for that first year and a half to 2 years when they're not talking, especially that first year, everybody's like, well, every mom will tell you, I just know their screams. If you knew what they're screaming, you know what to get them. Trust me, I've had two of my own. I'm helping to raise two grandkids, one of which isn't even two yet. There is no difference in a scream. None. A scream is a scream, and it doesn't change if they're dirty or if they want milk. But what a mom or a dad does is they're sensing the child's feelings. The child is sensing their feelings. You know what? A child can feel if you're angry and you don't even have to say a word. So that clairsentience or that feeling is already starting, which is one of the abilities, and as kids are growing up, like I'm a huge believer in past lives, huge believer. And we're really recognizing it with my grandson because, his dad is a construction guy. He does a lot of home remodeling and things of that nature. My grandson knows what tool to grab at what time, scolds him when he's doing it wrong. I mean, it's crazy. He knows tractors. He knows how to work. I mean, all of this stuff. And he really resembles people in my past family that have been gone for over 30 years, like down to a T, down to the music choices, everything. It's crazy, So those things are already developing at birth. And as long as we don't look at our children and say, hush, that's not true, that's made up, that's not real, you don't tell them you don't know everything. Instead, ask them, what is it you're trying to tell me, to explore what they're saying. You'll start to realize that, all this is correct. All of it that they're saying is correct. Because even my granddaughter at 4 talks to my grandmother all the time. And she knows that she's her great grandma. She knows all about her jewelry. She told us all about her car that great grandma drove. I mean, great grandma's been gone for 15 years. There's nothing for her to know about any of this stuff. Matter of fact, when she said the car was red, we went, no, her last car was black. And then also we went, wait a second, you know what? The last 6 months, that black car broke and she got a red van. So,
oh my goodness.
She went to my mother has my grandmother's jewelry box. She went to it. She goes, this is great grandma's treasure chest. And she opened it up and she was, because and she'll tell you, great grandma tells her everything.
I could see that being something that, if you're a parent and you don't have like the background like you, that could scare you a little bit.
It could scare you, but that's where parents will go, hush, it's not real. They're making up stories. It's imaginary friends. But when you explore those and you start going, wait a second, there's something about this. they're knowing things that there's no way you could know, you realize those abilities can really develop young.
You mentioned it a little bit when we started our interview, but we talked about women and how we're a little more intuitive. Can you explain that a little bit more? How is that so?
Well, one, I don't know. I can't say that we're more intuitive. I think we express it more. I think we just express that ability. We don't necessarily, because for years and years and years, well, there's two things to this. Let's go with the one I was trying for years, that women were allowed to cry, men aren't allowed to cry, women are feeling creatures, men are not feeling creatures. So we really have a society-based thing. So women are more apt to say, I feel this, I hear this, I know this, whatever, where men tend to maybe not be that way. I do think that's changing because society is allowing men to cry. Men are screaming, I've got feelings too,
Yep.
But I also think that really goes back quite a long time ago, back into the mid 1800s and earlier, because back in those days, only men could take a podium and speak in public. Only men could do all that stuff. Men could only own land and all that, unless you were a medium. If you're a female and you were a medium, you could take a stand in public. You could take a forum, and speak. So, and it was the only time a woman was allowed to speak in a public demonstration type situation. So I think that's been with us a long time. But as we go, we have some phenomenal men that are mediums and psychics. They've just learned to train their brain to realize there's so much more to it than just, going to work, being the enforcer at home and all that stuff.
Okay, so we've been in kind of a weird time frame here in the last couple of years. And knowing that you are as connected to energies as you are, I want to ask you, between COVID and the political stuff and the global unrest in general, I mean, what is your take on everything that's going on right now? Is there something that you feel or that we're maybe supposed to be taking away from all of this as like a society, as a people?
I think for myself, I have been talking about it. Now, I'm not a political person by any stance, okay? So I never necessarily have a like or a dislike for anybody. But when you look at politics, and I really started talking about them on an energetic standpoint, and I said, if you take the face off the person, but you look at a populace, and it's been a large populace that have prayed for change in America. We need change. We need this. We need that. And when you have that many people asking that, it turns into a prayer, it turns into a manifestation, and we're going to get it. So I really do think that beginning of the political has been a lot about change, whether it is proving we can do this, proving not, whatever, it's just change is happening. I think that's on an energy level. And at least that's with the politics. When I look at with COVID and all of that, I'm really seeing more that we need a time of rest. We need a time to go inward. We need a time to look within here. And we weren't doing it. We had so many other things out there shouting at us to look at that we weren't looking at inside ourselves anymore. So to myself, I look and go, wait, the universe is just saying, hey, take a moment. You need to take a break. You need to go home. You need to be grounded. Like your parents, go and think about what you've done.
Yeah, exactly. It's the universe yelling at us.
Yeah, universe is yelling at us like, hey, this is time. It's time to go inwards. It's time to look at you. And see what isn't serving you any longer. See what the real thing is. And I really do think over the last year and a half, you'll see that, you'll even see like even larger, I call them larger than life people. They're just amazing people. They're like us. But, some of those mediums are have been in the California and the fires going on. And they'll tell you these things sprung up and they got close to their home. And they said, Spirit's just telling me that I have not done enough soul searching. I need to really shut down my house. I need to go in. I need to spend time with myself and to really go inward. So for myself, that's what I do believe it is. But I also like the fact that going through this, you're seeing a huge uprise in spiritual awakening. You're seeing people just open up because they're starting to see, more of themselves, I think.
And to that point of opening up and connecting a little bit more, you have said everybody's got psychic abilities. It's just figuring out how to use them. So how do you do that? How do you start? How do you tap into that a little bit?
Number one, you give a call. But, beginners, I love it because I I will tell you what, up until recently, I would have told you my beginners were my favorite students, and they are. I love all my students, especially when I could take them through the whole journey. But when I start people at a beginner's level, whether they have had it all going on and they're just kind of feeling crazy or feeling like there's lots of pieces missing everywhere, or if it's somebody that's curious, but they feel like they don't have a feeling bone in their body. Okay. So when they come into me, I explain to them, I explain to them that number one, I started stopping using the words clairs. And I did that literally because my mentor stopped using them. And it made sense. When I thought about it, I took clairvoyance out because everybody go, what was that? What was that? What clair was this? What clair was that? So you take it off and you put it on a feeling aspect, because you have sight, you have hearing, you have feeling, you have not, things, knowledge. So I break it down to the feelings. And then I tell them, I'm going to teach you how to use those feelings, those senses. And they're like, I already know how to hear. I already know to see. I go, really? How much of what I just said did you hear? And they're like, I heard it all. And I'm like, or were you formulating what you were going to say to me back to me before I finished speaking? And they're like, that's exactly what I was doing. I'm like, so you weren't hearing anything really that I said. You've got a couple of words here and there. Mm-hmm. So what I'm going to teach you how to do is really learn to listen. I'm going to teach you to really look at sight. It's like when me and you get off, I remember your face for almost an eternity, and even possibly where you aged a little bit, because I'm looking at your face and going, where are these details? Mm-hmm. So I'm teaching people how to really look. So because when you start to really look at people for the first time and not just do a glance, all of a sudden they don't look like anything like you thought they did. It's like all of a sudden they got marks and moles and stuff that you didn't realize they had because you weren't paying attention. So I teach people how to pay attention to all those things. And when you really start to retrain that brain, how to open up to those senses, it now allows you to go, wait a second, I'm going to give myself a moment. I'm going to learn to stay present so that I can connect to the energies around me and hear that stuff come in or see that stuff that's in front of me.
It's crazy to think that senses that you're born with, that you've had your whole life, you're not even using properly. That's such a crazy concept to me.
Yeah. But we tell our children all the time, don't we? Listen. But it's what we do. It's what we do as a population.
You're not wrong. But that's like when you actually call us out on it, it's like, oh my goodness.
A lot of people come back at me initially go, what? And then you have to explain to them, it's like if I cover my face and said, what do I look like? I can be in a room with people for 2 hours and they'll go, wait a second, what did she really look like? I know she had curly hair. I think it might have been, it was brown. Can't tell you the color of her eyes. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's so many details people can't tell you because they're not really looking, and then they understand it.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the mind too for a minute, because a lot of what you do is in the mind. How powerful is the mind?
It's extremely powerful. When you learn to use those senses, when you really learn to use them, and say in a psychic reading, just in a psychic, either psychic or mediumship, when you learn to use those senses, you learn to open up. And I'm also going to throw in there when you learn how to be present right now in this moment, which is not easy to do. We're always living, 2 minutes ahead or 2 minutes behind ourselves. We're always thinking about the future. We're thinking about the past. We're never just sitting here taking a deep breath and just really seeing everything around us because of all the distractions. So first you have to also learn to get present. But once you you really master that skill, and then you master your senses, all of a sudden when you tap in, there is nothing that is not available to you. You can open up to the universe, you can open up to the other side, and so much can flood into you. It's just a matter of how much you're going to push it, how much you're going to develop that brain. Because these senses are kind of like going to the gym. I can't develop my deltoids if I don't work them out, if I don't lift weights, if I don't do all that. They get bigger and bigger and bigger. Why? Because I worked on them. Same thing with the senses. The more you practice, the more you develop, the stronger they get. And there really is no cap at the strength of what we can or cannot do.
And that's what you're doing, right? Just to kind of like explain this out for people. When you're doing a reading with somebody, when you're telling them, about what you see happening in like the next 5 years or something like that, that's the psychic energy that you're tapping into. So that's what everybody can do, technically.
Everybody can do it. Yes. Yeah, and it's so neat because when I do try to tell people, and I didn't so much in the beginning, but I do tell them a lot now. Psychic readings are they're amazing because they can be life changing, But at the same time, one, I can't tell you what to do. This is your life. But you're always going to have pillars in your life you're going to hit. No matter what, you're going to have pillars. Then you have a lot in there that can change. So you have destiny versus free will. And everybody gets confused when you throw both of those at you. You're like, well, which one is it?
It's one or the other. Exactly.
One or the other. But it really isn't, because in your life path, you have literally planned out your life pillars that are going to happen no matter what. Okay. The rest of it, how you get from point A to point B, is going to be up to you, because that's your free choice. No matter what, you're always going to get to that pillar. It's like, no matter what, you were going to be a journalist. It was going to happen. Back in high school or junior high, you may not have even cared about writing, let alone punctuation or how to speak or anything. You know what I mean? But boom, all of a sudden you grow up and you're a journalist. Everybody's going, how the heck did that happen? Like, wasn't even close to that, and then all of a sudden you're doing this and you're doing it with elegance. It's because that pillar was going to happen no matter what. And what's going to happen in 5 years or 10 years, whatever's planned is going to happen no matter what. But how you get there is going to be your free choice. So a psychic taps into that energy and sees or feels or hears or knows, and can then give you the message of what they see on whatever path you're going.
And so it does. And so like it is, if your path would change, right? So I don't know, say, you're married for 1 minute and then you're divorced, then your path is obviously changed. Does that whole psychic, like that whole path and the pillar, everything changes then?
No, the pillars never change. The pillars never change. The psychic, the free will, how you get to the pillar will change, but the pillar will never go. So there's always somebody on the other side. You always have a guide on the other side saying, hey, come on, hon. They put little soft little things in there to kind of bounce you back over to where you need to be when you need to hit that next pillar. Like,
so is that like
this?
The stuff when you're like trying to do something and it seems like everything in the universe is like getting in your way and not making that work. That's that trying to direct you back to where you're supposed to go.
Very much so. Okay. Yes. And all of a sudden you're realizing life is going great. Everything's smooth. Everything's happening. It just feels amazing. It's because, wow, you're hearing everything. You're paying attention, not necessarily always, knowing you're paying attention, but all of a sudden you get off that path and you're getting a lot of soul experience, though. You really are getting a ton of soul experience, but they got to pop you back on to get you back on the path someplace.
Okay. Well, that makes a ton of sense, because I know I personally have run into times where like I go and I'm doing something and I just feel like, oh my goodness, there's like every possible thing that could go wrong is going wrong right now. So that makes sense.
It's wonderful how the universe works.
It is. So let's talk about a topic that everybody I know is always like, when I tell them I'm talking to a psychic, everyone gets that crossed with medium. So let's talk about that a little bit, because not everybody has this ability, but it can happen. I know I've had some experiences, and I'll talk about them in the episode prior to this one, so you'll get to hear about that a little bit. But you do this too, DeEtte, a lot. Can you tell me a little bit? I mean, what should someone know if there's like brand new to this and this is just starting to happen? What are these encounters like?
Okay. Well, first, number one, not everybody is a medium. Can anybody be trained to be a medium? Yes. Will it happen as easily as it does for somebody that's born one? Probably not. You'll probably have to work a little bit harder. But a lot of times it'll happen with a story I use is, say, grandma's passed away. There's, she was the cook of the family. She never wrote down any of her recipes. You know what? You just had to watch and learn type of thing. You're trying to make her goulash and you can't figure out why it never turns out. And you're trying to figure all this out. And all of a sudden you hear butter in your head. You start hearing butter out of nowhere. You're like, okay, I'll put butter in. I've never tried it. And next thing you know, it tastes just like grandma's, chili was. And you're going, wow, I can't believe I remembered that. Well, really what's happening is grandma's come through and told you, put the darn butter in. You know what? You'll have my chili. Or people will sit there and start having conversations with their loved ones. Dad has passed away and he's always been your person when you needed to speak to somebody. And you start going through all the things in your mind as if you were talking to dad, and you feel like you're getting an answer. But, at the end of the day, you're just going, all I've been doing is talking to myself all day. But really, it's been dad on the other side. because you're not going to create all of dad's answers, so it's dad on the other side talking to you. It's just that it's in your thoughts. So people always expect the naked ear to be the one that opens up and chimes in, and people will fight that ability because they think they're supposed to hear it. And really it's thoughts is what it is. So, and it comes in a lot of times as your voice. It is. So you have to start to distinguish the energy of it. And I like to tell people, start to meditate. Pick a time and a place every day to meditate. Go into the meditation, your sacred spot or your spot, whatever you want to call it. And you know what? Tell guides, loved ones, stay out until I get in there and I get ready, and you'll know when to come in. And you start into your meditation. Know your body. Understand what this feels like. Then once you get into meditation, invite those people to come in, invite a guide in, invite grandma in, something of that. All of a sudden, you'll start to feel something coming near you. You'll feel that energy coming in. And if you're hearing them, all of a sudden, you'll know the difference between your thoughts and their thoughts. So it's really getting to know this body to understand when something else comes in. I mean, how many times have you been sitting there in a room, you thought you were by yourself, and somebody comes up behind you and you turn around and you're like, what? You're not even surprised they're there because you felt them.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. It's an energy field.
Does this happen a lot too, especially if this is new for somebody, like while they're sleeping?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, spirit loves to come through dreams, especially right away. So because it's a clear place to get you, your conscious is not there anymore. You're just totally relaxed. You're not putting boundaries up. You're not afraid. It's all that. So spirit can easily come in at that point and talk.
We're coming up on Halloween. It's a little ways away here. So Ouija boards, come up around Halloween time. And so what is your take on those? I personally, they freak me out. So what are your thoughts?
Oh, I go back and forth on them. I always go back and forth on them. And it is, I won't tell you, it is because I still have that religious background. So I do. But I also know that if I have an issue with the Ouija boards, I better have an issue with tarot cards, and things like that, because some people look at them as just another divination tool, like, tarot cards, oracle cards, pendulums, all of that. I always say that if you're going to use them, just be careful. You're going to get a lot more knowledge. You're going to get a lot more information. And even though I would love to say, all those other things don't exist because I haven't seen them personally, I have heard people talk about them that really do have a lot of connection to it. So I just tell people, just use them gently, use them with care. They really are not the Hasbro toy. They're not. If you're getting them off a toy shelf, don't be assuming they're just a toy. I think they should really be sold, and sold more out of metaphysical shops, things of that nature, than where they're sold, because I think they do need to be taken seriously.
Well, and to that point, I want to ask you then about, this is coming from the movies, but this is what you hear. So tell me if I'm totally crazy here. But like, if you play with a Ouija board, you're opening up a portal and anything can come through. So is that like a thing? And do you need to have like protections in place if you're doing, like, is all of that just movies, or is that real?
I truly believe it's more movies related. Okay. But I will tell you also, before I do any reading, I say a prayer. So tell
me more. Now you've piqued my interest.
Well, because I do, I ask, I do, I very much believe in God. I really don't think I could do this work without God. For me, He's source. He's the highest spirit. It's all of that. And I know not everybody follows that belief, and that's okay. But I literally say a little prayer, and it's just, thank you for the blessings that they bestowed on me to be able to do this ability for somebody else, and thank you for allowing all my loved ones, guides, and angels to come through, and the person I'm reading for is loved one, angels and guides to come through, and to allow me to receive the information in a clear, concise way in which the client can understand to best help the client. I thank spirit before, I thank them afterwards, because I do believe it's a lot, it's a process of being gratitude. It is a process of setting an intention. It is a process of, setting a space to say, hey, this is a sacred space now.
Okay, one more question now as we're going here. DeEtte, I could just ask you questions all day. So, if you have these abilities, medium abilities, are you sort of like a beacon to the dead? Like, do they kind of gravitate towards you because you're able to do this and not everybody can?
I don't think they really gravitate to me. I really do truly believe on the other side. I think because on the other side, they see things a lot clearer. You know, they're not like us. They're not honed into what's in front of us or what's in our community, and that's it. You know, they see everything. So literally, it's like this happens. It happens a lot because I do have an international based clientele. You know, so how does somebody in Australia figure out who I am? You know, so it's like their loved ones out there. Like I really want to talk to them. They need me. I need to be there for them. So the loved one kind of, you know, the one on the other side is looking out like who can I best communicate with? Who can I best, you know, go to speak the way I'm going to speak for them? And then they come back, you know, and they like I said before, they come back to you, or you know, they go to the person in Australia and they're like, they really start thinking of, get them to think about them. You know, they make sure their pictures are being noticed. You know, spirit will manipulate energy on the other side so that songs that they played together come up. You know, all those processes to say, hey, think about me, think about me. You know, and then they will. They make sure that my name gets dropped to them somehow, and have them realize to call me. And that's how that starts. But I do believe it's all on the other side. I don't think I'm one like I don't think it's like Ghost and Whoopi Goldberg, you know, unless I go to an event. And I will tell you, I've been to events where I went, oh my God, everybody and the brothers showed up. And they're like, nobody's here. I said, trust me, everybody and the brothers here, you know, because you can feel it. But it's literally because they got 10 mediums in there, and their loved ones have already told them they're going there. You know, their loved ones have already made the plan. I'm going here. So spirit's like, hey, I'll be there when you get there. You know, so, but I don't think we're necessarily a beacon.
No, that makes sense. It's questions I've got, and I'm so glad I'm able to pick your brain about them. I think it'll be helpful. I think it'll be helpful for our listeners to learn some of this stuff. I know this is always like a taboo subject, I feel like, for a lot of people, or stuff that people don't talk about. So getting into it and like actually getting to pick your brain is a good thing.
Yeah. I have a passion for it, especially the teaching side of it.
And that's where I'm going next, is that you teach and you show people how to actually hone in on these abilities a little bit more. Talk to me a little bit about what sorts of things you do. How are you teaching people?
Well, number one, I'm a master teacher of psychic mediumship development, and I'm under the school LWISSD, which is Lisa Williams School. And you can Google Lisa. She's quite up there, knowledgeable and known all over the world. But she also teaches because she does feel, and I will tell you what, and I want to step back a little bit, because the reason I do teach is because not only to help people, you know, hone those gifts and make them more than what they thought they could be, help them, guide them on that aspect, give them those tools, but also because I want people to become much more ethical in their reading, more authentic. Okay. Be able to say, hey, you know, I'm not getting this, I'm not getting that, you know, not make up stuff, all of that type of stuff. I think number one, mediumship has got to be that. And that has been, it's also made it a huge passion for me, because I have had the ability to see a lot of readers and a lot of mediums, and not always been highly impressed. But you know what, they're still doing what they do. It's just that, you know, I want to help, you know, people get to that next level and really be able to kind of put a plaque on their wall that says, you know what, I've really put my time in. So again, after that, but when I do bring people in and I say, let's teach you, it really is, like I just taught a day class this last Saturday, and I bring them in, they're like, okay, why are we sitting here for 7 hours? And I tell them, quite frankly, I could do this over a 7-week period of time. And I do beginners over a 7-week period of time also. But on a 1-day class, I want them exhausted. You know, they're coming in, they don't know why they're there. They ain't figured out why they've given me money to do this, you know, the whole 10 yards. And I start to give them knowledge, and it starts to piece together. But at the end of the day, I'm going to have them do readings. And I have to get them into a place where they just don't care anymore. They're exhausted. Let's get it over with. I'm tired. And then the magic happens, because they're not putting up a shield. They're surrendering to spirit. They're surrendering to the energy. They're just trusting or spitting out what they're getting. And it's beautiful. Now, if I take that same class and put them on an online version, every week we're looking at a different subject. So if we're looking at sight 1 week, I have them doing skills with just sight. And it's not connecting to the other side. It's, I want you to go outside. I want you to look at a tree. but I don't want you to like look at the distance of it. I want you to hone in, the shape of the bark, that, the different colors of the browns. Is there some grays in there? Are there patterns in there? Look up into the limbs, look into the leaves, see everything, see the hole, the little bug ate through, see all those details, because that's huge. It's huge. So we spend that time training their brain to start to see all of that. And then once they're done with that, if they feel so, I take them into intermediate. We go a little bit deeper. I always go back to some of the basics because I think a strong foundation is amazing to have. It's kind of like a tree. It can get so big, but if it doesn't have a good foundation, the tree's only going to stay up so long.
This is true.
Yes. Trees are tall, but weak grounding, So then we go into intermediate and into the advanced classes. And every class, we just dig deeper and deeper and deeper and give them more knowledge on everything, until all of a sudden they're ready to go off on their own. So it's a process. It's like any other like school or college. It really is.
It makes a ton of sense. And you also, you explain things to people. You have a radio show. You if people are just trying to learn and want to know more. Tell me a little bit about that.
I love my radio show. It started a little over a year ago. Terrified of I can imagine your first time doing anything journalism. You're probably terrified, like, oh my God, why am I doing this?
Oh, yeah.
And that's exactly what happened. But Spirit threw me at it. They really did. I don't feel I had a choice with this, because I kept hearing radio. I kept going, I'm not doing radio. Are you kidding me? I'm not going to do that. A friend of mine says, oh my God, you'd be great at radio. And I looked at her and said, no, I wouldn't. All of a sudden, one of her friends has a radio broadcasting station that's looking for new hosts. And she throws us together. I'm like, oh my God, this didn't just happen. And then I thought, why do you want me to do radio? And it really was to help other people. So the title is School Through Spirit. And it is about, like, I will bring people in that have either have a spiritual modality, psychics, mediums, healers. I've had, just all those, all the different things. I mean, trust me, it's a huge realm. It's a huge world of metaphysical. Or they have had spirit impact them in some way. So I've had people that have been in prison, really, beat up, pictures of them beat up, swelled up from drugs, prison, the whole 10 yards. And all of a sudden, boom, spirits come to them and open their eyes, and how it's changed their life to who they are now, So this show is for people to tell their stories, how they started, their journey along this, talking about what's going on with them, what's going on in the future, to show them all that spirit can do for us, or that energy does when, you allow it to happen. And I think it helps a lot of people, because we do have so many of us out here. I mean, trust me, I thought I was going crazy for years. I mean, the stronger the abilities got, the more I thought, I'm insane. I don't know if I'm coming or going anymore. And if I'd had that one person that I could relate it to, that, I heard on a radio or heard someplace, or even to talk to, I think my journey might have been a little bit easier. I would have known I wasn't alone, and I wasn't crazy.
Because there's a lot of them out there. I've listened to a few of your shows, and it's like, oh my goodness, like it's such a wide realm of people.
Yes, it's huge. It's huge. I explain, it's like walking into a hospital and you're a nurse the first day. You show up in scrubs and you're like, I'm gonna hit the med floor. And when you get there, you realize, oh my God, I just went to see the eye doctor the other day, and it was such a realization, because she's like, this is a busy spot. And I'm like, really? You guys look at eyes? And she's like, no, we got the glaucoma specialist, and we have this specialist. And they had like 5 specialists for a set of eyes. I'm like, wow, okay.
So you didn't know there was that much involved with eyes.
I know, I'm like, what? But it really made me open my eyes to go, wait a second, mediumship's the same way. Psychic work is the same way. Anything to do with spirits the same way.
So my last question, well, actually, I probably have another. I have a follow-up. I have 2 last questions for you. So the first one is, if people want to get a hold of you, they want to find you, where do they go, DeEtte?
Okay. It is DeEtteRanae.com. Okay. It's just my first, just my name I go under. And you can go right there. It's going to tell you all about me. I freely give my phone number out to people, which is 608-352-5944. Text me though, because I don't answer the call. I'll tell you right. My phone is set up to go to silent. If it doesn't know your number, I'll never hear from you again. You know what I mean? So I'm not good with answering the phone. My iPhone saves me, I think. You can get me through Facebook. You can get me through Instagram. You can go to the radio show, which is www.wltkdb.com, because it's an internet-based radio show, and he'll get you to me also. Or just Google me. I think I'm at like 7 or 8 pages on your phone now. So just Google my name.
She does. She pops right up. That's how I found you, is you just go through DeEtte Ranae and boom, she pops right up.
There's a lot of me there. So yeah.
My last question for you is for anybody who might be listening, and you know, if stuff is starting to happen for them, and they're, you know, they're maybe like this isn't really happening, or in that doubt mode, you know, any last pieces of advice for somebody?
You know, if you're doubting, literally sit back, take a moment, take some deep breaths, getting present, get in that present state. And that's not an easy state to get to. I understand it. Meditation will help you get there, but start to trust it. You know, I tell people I actually went to Amazon and figured out how to make a dream journal or a psychic development journal that's just blank pages, so that people, when you get these hits, you know, you take that book or any book, go to Walmart if you need to and get a notebook. But literally when you get what I call hits, those little, you know, those little moments of information you're getting because you're doubting yourself. So, you know, if you heard that day on the way home from work to take a right, you don't normally take a right, take the right. You know, no, I heard go right, I went right. It turns out I avoided this, I avoided that, or maybe I don't understand why I voted, but I still heard it and I still did it. Take note of those things where you had, you know, you've seen something in your mind that was going to happen and it happened. Write it down in that journal. You know, just it's not a journal to talk about your day. It's a journal to talk about all those times you receive information from an unknown source and that you end up being right about. Because when you know, eventually you can look back when you're really doubting yourself and go, wait a second, I got all of these under my belt, so I know something's there. And you'll stop doubting yourself so much.
That is a great piece of advice. I bet you it's probably pretty eye-opening too if someone's doing that and they look at that. They're like, wow.
It is. I have my students do it because they'll come back at me and go, oh my gosh, I just don't believe it. I'm like, where's your journal? Open it up. And then they're blown away like, wait, you know, I've really come along. I'm like, yeah, you have. You know, your life is changing because your life will change when you open up. It changes dramatically.
DeEtte, thank you. Thank you for sharing with us. Thank you for being here. And I appreciate this so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for having me on. I always love to come out and do these things.
Thank you for listening. And if you want to hear more Soul Source, just subscribe to our show. We're available wherever you listen to podcasts. And you can watch us too. We're on YouTube. Just look for Soul Source. Soul Source is brought to you by Red Shoes Inc., a leading agency specializing in crisis and strategic communications, media relations, social media, and so much more. To learn more about Soul Source and Red Shoes, visit us at redshoesinc.com.